Welcome to the 2019 Hart Virtual Media Day. Josh Pound now joined by the head coach of the Raven football team, Larry Wilcox. And Coach, thanks for taking the time to preview a little bit about this upcoming season. I guess the first thing we'll start with is coming off of the national championship kind of changes the timeline for what you guys have typically had over the years for going into recruiting and things like that. What did this past offseason look like compared to years before?
Well, it was an exciting end of the season, first of all, with 3 wins in the NAI National Playoff Series, and then obviously then going to Daytona to the National Championship game. But that did elongate our season by 5 weeks and impacted significantly on the recruiting process. Most people felt like that would be an advantage for us, but we didn't get into one high school this winter. So there was some catching up to do in the off season, and then a lot of subsequent excitement with the season that we did have. So we were glad that we were where we were at, but a lot of work for our guys to do. And then with graduating 35 seniors from that team, really made some challenges for our coaching staff and for our returning players.
Now we're on the eve of the preseason, and I guess just you've had a number of those over the years. What's the preseason look like now compared to maybe when you first started?
Well, I think what has happened in several recent years is the short time period that we have to get a football team ready. We'll have just a little over 2 weeks before our first game with Grayson University. So we're sort of in a hectic mode once our players arrive. And then you have all the other things that are going on with the start of the school year, players needing to finalize registration, financial aid, class schedules, orientation for our new students, and there's just a beehive of activity going on, and we're trying to cram football practice into that. And then this year we have a little bit of a unique situation in that we're starting much later than our opponents, as much as 11 days later reporting. So we report on the 13th. Our players weren't even here. And some schools reported on the 2nd. So we're in catch-up mode in that regard as well.
So would you say that, at least for this year, that's the biggest challenge, or is the biggest challenge you led to that just trying to get everything in between practices and registration and classes? Is that the biggest challenge now that you guys face as a staff?
Oh, I think definitely. We've got basically 2.5 weeks to get a college football team ready to play, make sure that they're conditioned properly, they know what they need to know, that we're not putting anyone in a dangerous situation, and that we're able to execute and play relatively well in that first game.
And now we look at, football's really become almost a year-round sport now between the games and the season, and then you go into recruiting, and then you get from recruiting into your off-season. What kinds of things do you and your staff do to maybe press that reset button and get re-energized and recharged, getting ready for a new year?
I think that the window gets smaller and smaller every year for whatever reason. I think that we feel our staff is well organized, and we take a lot of pride in making sure that we have an organization here that will continue to build on what is done in the past. But the time period has changed significantly, primarily I think because of the recruiting process has changed so much in the time that I've been doing this. You have to be recruiting year-round because everybody else is, and it's not the way that I would want to do it, but it's the way that it is. So it's what we have to do. So the recruiting is something that happens every day. So I think our coaches get less and less time to themselves and away from football in the summer than ever before. I think we had like a handful of days this summer that we were able to get away. But this is what we like to do. It's what we want to do, and we're glad to do it. But you do need to recharge every once in a while and take a deep breath and step back and give yourself a chance to evaluate and see where you're at, and then move forward. But again, I think the organization of our program and sort of the foundation that we put in place over a long period of time will help us weather most storms.
Now we take a look going into the 2019 season. The chips are starting to fall as far as preseason conference, preseason NEI ranking. Moving to the south this year from the north, so just a little bit of a change in the schedule. It's still the same schools that you've been playing over the years, only now a different chunk of them counts as conference games. just give us a little bit of expectations and a preview about what you're looking out of the team. You return a ton of guys off of that national championship game team. What are you looking like going into this season?
Well, I'll let you know about November. Okay, so that's the best answer, most honest answer I can give you. As I said, our players haven't even arrived as of this interview, so there's some unknowns even at this point in time. Who can pay their bill? For example, and so the team that we're anticipating, we feel should have a good nucleus of players returning. Schaefer Sheets, in particular, Player of the Year in our conference in the North Division. At the quarterback position, Marquise Stewart, perhaps the most talented running back in the country, or among a handful of guys who are. We returned 4 of our starting offensive linemen. We returned a number of guys on our defensive front, the defensive line, Jake Lilly, Joe Knutson, Tanner Lukenhoff, Isaiah Flowers. We've returned guys at our linebacker position, Jalen James and Cody Sisson and Connor Walker and other guys. So Brett Shepardson, the 2-time all-conference player. So we've got a good nucleus of players returning. It's just sort of filling some of those voids where we did have guys that were lost to graduation, and we really didn't have someone who played substantially in the 2018 season at that position.
How key is it? You just named off a bunch of different guys. A lot of depth that you guys have been able to establish over the last 2 or 3 years, where it's not a question of, it's a question of trying to figure out the pieces to the puzzle going into the preseason. How important is that to you and your staff to know that you've got quality reserve players because of the way that you guys rotate that will be able to hopefully step up into starting roles year after year?
Well, it's critical to any team at any level of football, and at the college division, you're going to lose players through the course of the season. Might be just for a game or two, or it might be for the remainder of the year. So you've got to have somebody of some skill level that's going to be able to step in and assume that role, and for the whole team not to lose ground or lose a beat because of that replacement coming in. And that was a big part of our season last year. We had depth in the lines positions and on defense and at running back. When you have a guy like Marquise Stewart and a guy like Charlie Neihart in the backfield for you, those are 2,000-plus rushers. And for our tailback position to have almost 3,000 yards rushing, then that depth is going to save you. There were games that Marquise wasn't able to play, for example, and there are games that Charlie might not have been able to play the full game. So you've got to have that depth if you want to have success on the year. And we really would not like to think in terms of a reserve. We would like to think of guys of complementary skill level, so you're not replacing an A player with a B player, but you have 2 A players.
Right. Finally, I guess, this is a special season overall for the program, 50th anniversary of the return of Raven football. You've been fortunate to be involved in quite a few of those seasons. Just talk to a little bit about what it means to be able to sit back and take a look maybe throughout the course of this year and reflect over the history of the program.
Well, I've been involved with all 50 of them. 3 as a player, 6 as an assistant coach, and the remainder as the head coach here. So I've witnessed all 50 of the seasons that we've had. St. Benedict's College, our predecessor, had a great tradition of football and an outstanding program over many, many years. The college chose to discontinue football in 1962. We resumed play in 1970 on a very Spartan budget and operation, and has since grown to what it is today. So I feel like football has a significant presence on our campus here. It has an importance to the school and our alumni, and obviously to the people that are involved with it as players and coaches. So we want football to be a reflection of the quality that Benedictine College offers our students and our alumni.
We'll have a number of events around each home game this year, reflecting on different parts of the 50-year history of the return of football. So be sure to check that out on the website. But, Coach, appreciate the time. Thank you, and good luck this season.
Thank you, Josh.